Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Rangers review after Rangers opened their Premiership account with a comfortable 3-0 win over Livingston at Ibrox this afternoon. Goals coming from Yanis Hadji, a Scott Wright stunner, and Kemar Roof. Jonny McFarlane is alongside me. Jonny, you've just watched Rangers win at a cancer. What's your immediate thoughts after that one?
Well, obviously a really good result, first and foremost, and another good opportunity for the players to get more minutes in their legs. I thought it was fairly typical of the Gerrard era in that it was a completely controlled performance at all times. And listen, at the Rangers review, we like our stats, and just the stat that shows you how little threat Livingston possessed in the game was they notched 0.08 expected goals for the game. So, I mean, no impact going forward whatsoever. And while there was a long period of the game where things went a little flat in the second half, Rangers just, they never looked troubled. And the way they move the ball about, Derek, it means that teams like Livy, who sit in and are so negative and are basically trying to get away without getting hammered, they eventually tire because you're working them constantly. So even when Rangers aren't at their very slick best, it's almost inevitable in those last 20 minutes, that fitness that they have and the way they've worked the opponents is going to come to some kind of fruition. And you saw at the end, Kamara should have scored. It should have been 4. So ultimately, I think a very satisfying performance. Well, certainly a satisfying result and a satisfying performance from the point of view. It's another step on the the road to better fitness. And once they hit top gear, it's clear from John Lundstrom, I think, for example, who, when he came on, looked pretty good. So it's clear that Rangers are going to be, I think, even better this year.
Yeah. What did you make of the team initially, Jonny? A few eyebrows were raised looking
Absolutely.
at that team. First and foremost, John McLaughlin preferred to Alan McGregor. I think with one eye, obviously, on Tuesday night, but there was a few notable omissions there this afternoon.
Well, Gerrard said before the game that McGregor would play on Tuesday. So I think it's a case of he's spoken to McGregor, and McGregor's this is what they've decided to do. So I don't think there's any worries in it. I just think at Alan McGregor's age, there's going to be a little bit of more rotation than normal. And listen, here's the thing: John McLaughlin I think is better with the ball at his feet than Alan McGregor. I mean, if you're going up against a team that aren't going to try and do anything going forward, in some ways you're better having John McLaughlin there because he's so quick with his feet at recycling the possession. And I thought that, he obviously didn't have a save to make, but in terms of taking the ball on his feet, one touch, killing the ball dead, and then moving it on really quickly, John McLaughlin was actually really good. So I think we could expect more of that maybe as the season goes on. Alan McGregor is not getting any younger. You can't expect him to keep that level that he showed last season up. So this is the benefit of having two really terrific goalkeepers. And you saw that today. The one that surprised me, and I think none of us picked up, and obviously at the Rangers review we do these pre-match predictions, and I think none of us got anywhere really close because but the one that was most surprising that none of us picked was Calvin Bassey played from the start. And I thought he had a bit of a mixed game. I noticed in your man by mans, I think you gave him a 7 and said that he had to work on his final ball. And then some, mate. I really think, he was getting himself into really terrific positions. He's so powerful. He's got so many attributes. I mean, he's going to be a really terrific left back if he finds that final ball. But I'd be tempted to say that, Rangers should be just getting him on that training ground after every session and just make him whip balls and just, 2 hours a day every day. I'm sure they're doing that. But you saw the difference between him and Barisic in terms of Barisic has got such a cultured left foot, and Bassey's obviously he's a young player, but he's just not quite at that level. And I think you saw that in the game.
I think it's magnified as well because Barisic is so good. I mean, his deliveries are world class, but certainly for his age, for Bassey, he's raw. We all say this. I think there's a lot more to come from him, but I felt he could feel satisfied with his performance today. The goal itself was a thing of beauty, I felt. I mean, a fantastic delivery from James Tavernier, one of 2 assists he'd have today, carrying on last season's form. Hadji, great control and composure, just took 2 guys out the game and fired home with his right foot at the back post. He was in the mood today at Hadji, wasn't he, Jonny? It was so unfortunate to see him hobble off after a really rash and wild challenge, wasn't it?
Yeah, listen, I think I'm probably going to write about this next week. I think in Scotland, we need to have a conversation about protecting players of talent. For me, that was a very, very wild and potentially dangerous challenge, and it should have been a red card. I'll be interested to see what former refs say when they assess it. But I think the key thing in the IFAB rules is, do you endanger the opponent? And if you're going in so out of control, the way Lewis went in, is Adam Lewis, I think?
Yeah, that's right.
Liverpool loanee. I think he was a captain when Gerrard was in charge of the under-18, so he would have been fired up for the game. But that's a really, really bad challenge, and I think it should have been a red card. And we need to look at this in Scottish football. You know, we've not got a terrific history of looking after flair players in the game. You know, we do like to see a bit of graft and grit's kind of part of the Scottish culture when it comes to football. But listen, that kind of tackle is just not going to be accepted in Spain or Italy. It's going to be a red card every day, in my opinion. And I think we need to get to that stage here. We need to start protecting players like Yanis Hadji. And that's not a Rangers thing. It's a Scottish football thing. I think we need to start doing that. I don't know what you think.
No, talking about red cards, the kick at the end on Bassey, which was given a caution for. I mean, I don't want to have a go at referees. It's not the day to do that. But how is that not a red card to me? I can't. It defies belief why he's not sent walking for that. I
can only assume that he's not seen it properly.
Yeah.
Again, to me, that seems like a red card. It's an off the ball kick. There's no. It's violent conduct. So there's just no argument in my view. I'd be interested to see if there's a retrospective action taken on that one. But listen, let's not get bogged down talking about the referee, because you know this was all about the Rangers' performance in the game. But at the same time, it was frustrating. Two strange decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was a robust challenge, and it was unfortunate to see Hadji taken off. He soldiered on for the next 17 minutes, but couldn't continue. Let's hope he's okay for Tuesday night. Scott Wright replaced him, and for me, man of the match, Jonny. A terrific performance from him. He really staked his claim for a starting spot. And he would double the advantage in the second half. It was getting to that point in the game where you're thinking, Livingston get a chance that they could go up the parquet and score. I don't think they were ever in any serious danger, but the longer it goes on, you start thinking that. But Scott Wright, his finish from the outside of the boot, narrow angle into the corner, world class.
Yeah, just absolutely terrific. That's such a difficult chance to hit. And again, from a stats geek point of view, it'd be really interesting to see what measurement on expected goals that's given. I would imagine it'll be something like 0.1. I might be wrong, obviously. That's a guess, but a really, really difficult chance. And it's just so deft, this touch. I mean, it really is outside of the boot. I mean, curling away from the goalkeeper, you're not going to do that too many times out of 100. Too many times out of 100, you're just not. It's absolutely superb. And Scott Wright, as you say, was the beating heart, I think, of that Rangers performance once he came on. You know, he was constantly taking the ball, turning his man and driving forward. And that's so important in terms of going up against these low block teams. You know, you're disrupting players and disrupting the block all over the place when you've got a guy who can carry the ball forward like that. And Scott Wright is already looking a cut above the likes of Brandon Barker, the likes of Jordan Jones, these other guys who have come in, who I think Rangers hoped might have that sort of exponential explosion in terms of their quality coming into a better team. But Scott Wright is really delivering at the moment. I think we had an excellent piece by Blair Newman, which, if anyone's interested in what Scott Wright has the potential to do, Blair's pulled it all apart. So I made sure I sent him a wee tweet there just after the game saying you called it there, because I thought he was absolutely terrific. And the biggest positive and the biggest credit you can give him is he outshined Ryan Kent in the game.
Yeah, I thought Kent was good in matches. I think it'll just take him a bit of time getting up to speed, but he had the Livingston defence on strings at times. They could have just really struggled against him. They put the icing on the cake late on. Kemar Roof got in, and the actor came on as a substitute for Fashion Sakala. What did you make of Sakala's performance, Jonny? Because he was trying to get involved in the game, but it never really quite came off. He couldn't really impose himself on it as much as I'm sure he would have liked.
Yeah, it was a tough game for him. I mean, there wasn't a lot of space, there was no space in behind, really. So, he's going to have to adapt and get used to this idea of coming up against not even a low block, a deep block, a low block, because that's the way teams come to Ibrox and set up now. And that's going to get more and more the case.
Yeah.
Because Rangers have built up a reputation correctly that teams are coming to Ibrox with that fear again. We're going to get taken apart. But that's a good thing overall.
Yeah. And Roof comes on, he gets a goal. I didn't really think he done much when he was on, but he showed great striker's instinct to react to it. It was a defensive calamity at the end of the day to allow him to get in within a few yards from goal and rifle it in the back of the net. But good to see he's sniffing about chances like that.
All that passing that Rangers are doing, that can get a little bit frustrating, I think, when you're watching it. You can feel like it's a bit flat, but all that passing is paid off later in the game.
Yeah.
Because Livingston just looked completely and utterly out on their feet in that last 10 minutes. And we've already talked about how Kamara had the chance and there could have been more. But I think that's what all that work is sort of paying off with. And yes, there was a slightly frustrating period, but then you see the results of that. And Kemar Roof, listen, terrific player, and when he's at it, he's a very, very dangerous guy because he's so intelligent. And he's just reacted so quickly to that chance. He's been snapped onto it, and it's a great finish. It's and that puts a really nice sheen, a really nice comfortable sheen on the performance. Yeah. And of course, I think it's the 20th win at Ibrox in a row, isn't it? So
incredible. Yeah, we've got a comment here. Gordon Watson, hi Gordon. He's from Adelaide in Australia. He's got a question. What's happening with Itten? What does this guy need to do to get a game? That's an interesting one because I had him in my predicted lineup. I thought he would get the nod today. Didn't even come off the bench. Surprised with that, Jonny? Perhaps.
I thought Sakala would play because he was so electric against Real Madrid. So that was the one thing that I did get right in my lineup prediction. I didn't think Hadji would play, but obviously he came in. At times during the game, I was actually thinking, God, the boys called it right because this is kind of the balls that are going in the box. It's kind of more Itten's cup of tea than Sakala's. I just think he's just got to keep plugging away. And listen, this is Rangers now, right? You just don't get a chance. You have to force a chance. You have to be like Scott Wright and make an impression. And in pre-season, look, he did really well. He scored 3 goals. But it's hard to get into that Rangers team now. Really, really hard. There's international players in every position. There's high-quality players in every position. We saw someone like George Emerson. You talked about this in your piece on the Rangers Review website a couple of days ago. He was a good player with a lot of talent and a lot of potential. But you just need more than that now. You need to be performing week in, week out. This is Rangers back to the Rangers of the Walter Smith era, where you just had to be so good and performing to such a high level to get in the team. It's really as simple as that. And Itten will just have to get his head down and force his way in, and that's going to be hard for him.
Yeah, it's such strength and depth that Steven Gerrard has at his disposal right now. Finally, Jonny, a quick word for the supporters. Great to see the fans back in Ibrox again today. I've seen the videos as the manager and the players are making their way into the ground as well today. It's another step towards normality, and they made some amount of noise. The players would get such a lift from that, wouldn't they?
Oh yeah, I mean, you can't underestimate the level of importance that's going to have to give Rangers a boost this season. And I predict, especially in Europe, we know what these European nights are like at Ibrox. I've got this Michael Moles piece that went out today, and for that I was watching a lot of the old footage. Rangers against Parma. The atmosphere that night was, unlike anything else. I think for a lot, before certainly to the Dynamo Kiev game, perhaps in 87 or 88, and I think it was 87. Sorry, and obviously since that level of noise, and that's going to have a major impact for Rangers because there's certain clubs around Europe, and Rangers are one of them, where that home advantage, it really means something. Yeah. And that's been lost, but now that advantage is back in play again. I think that's a big help for the European games, especially. But Rangers are so dominant in the Scottish Premiership level. They're so dominant. I think they're going to run away with this league, frankly.
Yeah, I agree. Finally then, man of the match for today, Jonny, mine's is Scott Wright. I mean, James Tavernier is up there, 2 assists for him, but who's your top pick?
Yeah, listen, Rangers put a lot of their play down the right-hand side as usual, and Tavernier was terrific. But it's almost a bit unfair on Tavernier now because, we just expect sustained excellence, and it's not really fair on a player. So, but I thought Scott Wright, as we've touched on, was explosive today and carried the team forward and showed a creative spark, and ultimately against the team that are defending so diligently, that are so well organised, you're going to need a player to perform. And the decisive goal was the second goal. So I would have to agree with you that it was Scott Wright. Yeah,
absolutely. Right, that'll do us there. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. There'll be this man-by-man ratings on the Rangers Review website, and there's also a more detailed analysis piece coming out there as well, so stay tuned for that. We'll be back on Monday morning for the morning briefing, but until then, enjoy the rest of your weekend.